What if, from the very dawn of human observation, we weren't gazing at a solitary, lonely marble hanging in the void, but into a mirror? Imagine the profound shift in our entire existence if, instead of the familiar cratered face of our moon, a second Earth, a twin of almost unimaginable similarity, shared our celestial neighborhood, not as a distant sibling planet like Mars or Venus, but as a constant, looming companion locked in the same orbital path around the Sun. This is not a question of mere astronomy. It is a foundational rewiring of human consciousness, culture, science, and soul. The very first curious hominid to look up at the night sky would not have seen a cold, alien satellite, but a world. They would see swirling patterns of white and blue and green that mirrored their own, continents perhaps arranged in a vaguely familiar yet terrifyingly alien fashion. A permanent, undeniable testament that they were not alone in the universe, even if that companionship was spectral and silent. The development of myth, religion, and philosophy would be irrevocably altered. Every culture would have a creation story that involved the other, the double, the mirror world. Would it be seen as a divine realm, the home of the gods looking down upon us? A purgatorial reflection, a warning of what could have been? Or perhaps a hellscape, a distorted version of our own sins made manifest in the heavens? The concept of a singular, unique Earth, the center of God's creation, would never have taken root. We would know instinctively and intuitively from our first moments of awareness that our world was a pair, a binary planet in a cosmic dance, challenging every notion of our singularity. This constant presence would have been the ultimate driver of scientific inquiry, millennia before the invention of the telescope. Ancient astronomers would have charted its weather patterns, seen its ice ages advance and retreat, watched the slow geological dance of its continents through the shifting hues of its surface. The question of life would not be a modern philosophical debate, but an ancient, burning obsession. Is the green of their forests the same as ours? Do their deserts bloom in the same patterns? Do lights flicker in their darkness, suggesting cities, intelligence, a civilization looking back across the void, wondering the very same things about us? The entire endeavor of science would be geared towards answering this question. The space race wouldn't have been a Cold War competition to plant a flag on a dead rock. It would have been a unified, global, pan-historical imperative to reach out to our twin. Every resource, every genius mind, every technological innovation for the last 10,000 years would have been funneled in some way into bridging that gap. We wouldn't have satellites just for weather and communication. We'd have a massive, permanent fleet of observational probes, telescopes of unimaginable power, constantly trained on its surface, analyzing its atmosphere for signs of industrial pollution, listening for radio waves, searching for the spectral signatures of chlorophyll or something even more exotic. The concept of "are we alone?" is transformed into "what are they like?" a question of anthropology and sociology on a planetary scale, rather than one of existential astronomy. The gravitational implications of such a setup are frankly mind-boggling and form the first great scientific puzzle of this twin Earth hypothesis. And the view. Oh, the view! It would be the defining feature of human experience. By day, it would hang in the sky, a massive blue and white marble, its phases changing as it orbits the mutual center of gravity. You could watch its day turn to night, see the Terminator line sweep across its face. At its closest approach, it would dominate a quarter of the sky or more, its geological features clear without aid. You could point out its great rivers, its vast red deserts, its swirling hurricane systems to your children. At night, if its sunlit side faced us, it would cast an earth glow so intense that it would turn night into a dim, blue-hued second day, washing out the stars and forever denying humanity the deep, black, star-filled void that inspired so much of our astronomy and poetry. There would be no true darkness. Life's rhythms, nocturnal animals, human sleep cycles, migration patterns would all be fundamentally different. And during its new phase, when its night side faced us, it would not be invisible. We would see the lights. If they have lights. This is the ultimate question, the silent scream across the void. The presence of those lights or their absence would be the most profound, terrifying, and defining truth of the human species.
The absolute, all-consuming focus of every civilization on our world would be the deciphering of that mirror in the sky. The field of comparative planetology wouldn't be a niche branch of science. It would be the central pillar of all human knowledge, the grand unifying theory of everything. We would have mapped their continents before we had fully mapped our own. We would have named their oceans, their mountain ranges, their storm systems. We would know their axial tilt, their rotational period, the precise composition of their atmosphere down to the parts per billion. Every subtle change on their globe would be headline news. A volcanic eruption there would be tracked with the urgency we reserve for hurricanes bearing down on our own cities. A new algal bloom in their seas would spark international conferences. A persistent dust storm over one of their continents would be analyzed for years. The goal is singular. Find the anomaly that cannot be explained by geology, chemistry, or meteorology. Find the signature of technology. The search for extraterrestrial intelligence, or SETI, would be the most well-funded project in human history, a global effort involving millions of antennas perpetually listening across every conceivable frequency, not for a faint whisper from light years away, but for a roaring, undeniable broadcast from next door. The silence, if it were silent, would be deafening and deeply unnerving. The great filter hypothesis, the idea that there is some insurmountable barrier to intelligent life becoming spacefaring, would be a terrifying specter. If a world so perfectly identical to ours, with the same ingredients, the same age, the same conditions, failed to produce a technological civilization, what does that say about our own future? Or worse, does it mean the filter is still ahead of us? Some inevitable apocalypse that awaits all intelligent life? But what if we did see the lights? The moment the first telescope confirmed an unnatural, grid-like pattern of illumination on the dark side of the twin would be the most transformative moment in human history, dwarfing the discovery of fire, the invention of the wheel, or the harnessing of electricity. The confirmation of a techno-signature would trigger a global existential event. The question shifts from, "Are we alone?" to, "What are they? Are they us?" The concept of parallel evolution would be pushed to its absolute limit. In an environment so similar, with the same evolutionary pressures, would intelligence inevitably take a humanoid form? Would they have 2 eyes, a mouth, limbs? Or would the path of evolution on a world with such violent tides and tectonic stress have produced something utterly alien, perhaps aquatic or subterranean? The philosophical and theological implications would cause revolutions and the collapse of dogmas. Every belief system about humanity's special place in creation would shatter overnight. We would have to confront the concept of the other, not as a theoretical idea, but as a concrete, observable reality. The entire field of xenopsychology would emerge, attempting to deduce their psychology, their social structures, their art, their conflicts, their very nature from the faint patterns of their light emissions. Do their city lights pulse with a unified rhythm, suggesting a global hive-like harmony? Or are they fractured, flickering, and chaotic clusters, hinting at warring nation-states, just like us? And then, the most haunting question of all, if they are so like us, why haven't they contacted us? The principle of mediocrity, the idea that there is nothing special about our position, would suggest that if we can see them, they can see us. If we developed radio telescopes, so did they. If we see their city lights, they see ours. So where is their message? This mutual silence would be the greatest puzzle of all. It could be a sign of caution, a mirror of our own indecision and fear. It could be a sign of a fundamental difference. Perhaps their intelligence is not curious, or is isolationist by nature. Or most terrifyingly, it could be a sign that they did try to communicate long ago, and we lacked the technology to hear it, and they, interpreting our silence as hostility or unworthiness, gave up. Or worse, that they advanced beyond a technology we can detect into something we cannot yet perceive, and they are now watching us, waiting from a position of unimaginable superiority. The twin Earth would be a constant, staring sphinx, posing a riddle that our very survival might depend on answering correctly. Every child would grow up learning not just the geography of their own world, but of the other world, knowing that their future would be inextricably tied to the resolution of this silent, staring standoff. And looking even further ahead, millions of years from now, the dance itself would change. The gravitational interaction between the two planets, the tidal forces, would slowly be transferring energy. The dance would be slowing down. The two worlds would be drifting closer together, their rotations synchronizing even further. In the most distant future, perhaps the two planets will merge, a final, cataclysmic, and yet creative embrace that forms a new, larger world, a synthesis of both of our histories, our biospheres, our civilizations. The remains of our cities and theirs would be buried deep within the new planet's crust, a testament to the two lonely worlds that once danced together, looked at each other, wondered, and finally became one. The twin in the sky would be gone, not out of loss, but because it would have finally come home, and we with it, ending the longest and most profound relationship in the history of life.